Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Indie Friday, and this week we're taking a look at Rogue Legacy, a roguelite dungeon crawler slash platformer made by Cellar Door Games. At its core, Rogue Legacy is a game about family. Your family, to be specific. Starting in the first generation, you are given the quest of assaulting Castle Hamson, inside of which is the cure for the king your father's illness. It lies behind the giant golden doors featured in the foyer of the castle, which forces you to run past them every time you re-enter. Which will be a lot, because when you die, it will be your children who will continue the assault. They'll be born into a class and may have certain special traits that could help them, hinder them, or simply change the way the game plays. Some of the genetic traits can be pretty devastating too. Vertigo, for example, mirrors the screen both horizontally and vertically. On the other hand, traits like stereo blind simply take away your ability to see in 3D, which make you and the enemies flip over like cards whenever you change direction. This randomization and regeneration of children, along with the randomization of the castle itself, which we'll get to in a moment, makes it so that the game feels less and less like you're grinding through the same game over and over again, which is essentially what the game makes you do. At lower levels, you struggle to survive, trying to regain your bearings and find the first boss room, hopefully gaining lots of gold as you do. And at any point, you can pause the game and check out your position on the map, as well as your stat card to check the effects of your genetic predispositions. From there, the map in the foyer details your quest. After clearing the main part of the castle, the forest comes next, and then the Maya, which is located where the attic should be, and finally the dungeon. And when you die, you return to the wall and choose your next descendant and their traits. The money gained in the previous run is used to upgrade your family and your home, called the Manor, through which you'll gain access to a variety of utilities and skills. The blacksmith is unlocked early on, allowing you to upgrade your equipment with blueprints found throughout the castle. The enchantress imbues each piece of armor with a rune, allowing you to choose from a variety of stacking effects such as double jumping, dashing, or life and mana siphons, even runes to increase or decrease difficulty scaling. And finally, the architect stands near his mechanism that allows him to lock down the previous generation's castle, which will allow you to enter the same castle as you did previously, only collecting 60% of the gold you otherwise would have. This can be very useful in taking down bosses in some of the harder areas of the dungeon. Since you know where they are, you can run straight back to them with full health and full mana thanks to the teleporter that's featured in the foyer of the dungeon as well. You'll also unlock and upgrade the classes from here, as well as add permanent stat and weight carrying boosts. After you've suited up, Chiron stands at the entrance to the castle, demanding a sacrifice if you want to enter. Giving him the remainder of your money allows entrance, the percentage of which can be lessened with a skill back in the manor, and you're able to dive back in. The learning curve of the game is comfortably steep as well, so you'll always feel as you're just this close to being able to nail that stellar run, but with the controls being rather tight and the enemy designs working so well together against you, it can sometimes really feel like the dungeon was tailor-made to kill you. Because it was. Each section of the castle has its own boss, the bosses being giant, upgraded, and very dangerous versions of enemies you encountered before, which must be slain in order to access the final boss room back in the foyer. Those golden doors taunt you every time you run past, reminding you of your ultimate goal and just how far you have to get there. And there are journals littered throughout the castle detailing an earlier trek in that keeps you craving more. The game itself, however, is all about patience and strategy. Learning all of the class mechanics and spells, upgrading your stats and your equipment, and unlocking all of the other classes is the way you even begin to delve deeper inside. The classes themselves break down into the pre- and post-upgraded forms. All of the classes have a base mechanic, and upgrading them allows access to an activated skill, also unique to each class. So the starting classes of Knight, Mage, and Barbarian become Barbarian King/Queen, Paladin, and Archmage. The Barbarian King uses the unrelenting force shout from Skyrim to push back all enemies and projectiles on screen, and boasts 150% of your HP stat, but only 50% and 75% of your MP and strength stats. The Paladin is a very well-rounded unit with 100% of all your base stats, but because he has no boosts, he has two special skills. The first is a shield that blocks all incoming damage for 25 MP per hit, but the Paladin also has the ability to turn into a statue and drop onto enemies, and the Archmage has 150% of your MP, 125% of your intelligence, and 50% of your HP and strength. He/she will also have Spell Cycle, which will enable them to cycle through 3 random spells, but whether any of them will be useful is sort of luck-based. All of the classes have abilities and stat boosts that are useful in a variety of situations, and you will have to master all of them if you hope to survive. Each of the classes are unique in their stat and skill combinations and will change the way you approach the castle. The Assassin's Mist form allows you to slip around enemies and defenses, while the Spell Sword uses upgraded versions of spells and gains mana whenever striking an enemy. The Spelunker reveals chest locations around the map and gets more gold per coin, allowing for very easy gold runs. There's even a half-man, half-dragon class that flies around the world casting short-range fireballs from its ever-regenerating mana pool. So if there's a way you want to try and play this game, there's usually a class that will accommodate that style. The game warns you, however, from venturing too far into territory you're not prepared for, because the enemies will be higher level, and there will be a lot more of them, and they will have upgraded tactics and attacks, and their health and defense will be upgraded accordingly. You do not have to go in any order, but with the level of damage and the HP that the enemies will have, it will take a lot of skill to farm a higher area early. But the rewards will be worth it, as they will have more gold, the chests will be better, and once you find all the runes and blueprints in a certain area, even straight up stat boosts begin dropping. And it's also a useful idea once you've beaten any of the areas to run through them again every so often with your now boosted generation, making nabbing tons of gold in one run very easy. But when you break it down, the game is essentially making you have a very fun time at beating your own head against the proverbial brick wall until you finally upgraded it enough to break through it. Once you understand the base mechanics of how the spells interact with the various classes, and what classes are better suited for gold hunting versus monster hunting, and how to use the special skills properly, making your way through the castle becomes slightly easier. But that's just when you get comfortable, and with comfortableness comes carelessness. And that's usually when the game throws some new room at you or mechanic that you might have forgotten about, such as persistent and pneumatic floor spikes, or heat-seeking versus burst-shot missiles, and elementally named wizards using a variety of spells against you, some more easily dodged than others. But that all brings me back to the randomly generated dungeon and the map in the foyer. The basic layout will always be the same. The forest will always be to the right, the attic will always be up, and the dungeon will always be down. But everything else, from chest locations, to enemy locations, to floor plans and layouts, will be generated when you select the next child from the wall. Sometimes because of that very same randomness, you could run into the problem of having a room where there just isn't a solution. Or maybe there is one, but you don't have the equipment necessary and wouldn't have even had access to it if you had chosen a different child. Usually there are at least 1 or 2 chests a run that are just there to taunt you. And yes, that does include mimics. But you can always spot them, because not only do they shiver at your approach, you can also refer to the minimap and see whether or not that chest has a marker. If it doesn't, it's a mimic. But it's not all hacky slashy from point A to point B. There are mini bosses to beat, fairy chest challenges, special bonus rooms to find, item rooms, jukeboxes, and even upgraded versions of the bosses to find, which will force specific classes and traits on you, making you fight this new form in a new room with different death-dealing dangers. And so it becomes very easy to pick up the game, play through 3 or 4 generations, upgrade a bit, and drop it, in preparation for the next time you feel the urge to foray in. Because it really does hit all those primal joys of the Metroidvania-style game. The castle layout is rather large but easily navigated, the enemies are varied but easily understood. The randomness keeps you on your toes, but it feels very easy and very fun to make a frivolous run where the only objective is merciless slaughter of every being, living, dead, and furniture alike that stands in your ruddy way. That being said, it's not all about mindless killing. There is a much deeper story here, totally missable to the uninterested, that's told to you through those journals left behind by the previous generation. So what you're left with is a surprisingly simple, yet very difficult and complex game that'll whip you into the shape while playing it, and hits all the markers of a semi-niche genre. It feels comfortable and familiar, yet throws enough wrenches into the old mechanics that even older gamers like me find themselves giggling as our own expectations are shattered by this rather clever game. It's available on PC, Mac, and Linux, as well as Xbox Live and PlayStation Network, and you can buy the DRM free version from their main website, as well as the Steam version on, well, Steam. Either way, for $15, I can't recommend this game enough. It's full of intrigue and cartoony violence, 2 things which I adore, and should be well worth the time you put into it. The New Game Plus modes and a whole bunch of other options will keep you coming back time and again. So go, start your own journey, breed your own children, and make your own legacy. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, we'll see you next time.